Well, the rising stage is one of the stages. We have two stages during the campsite date, rising and the countdown. And those two stages present upcoming artists. They may already have had a breakthrough. We've experienced that quite often, that the music programmers book an artist in November, and when they play the Roskilde Festival in June, July, they're already a massive hit in Denmark. Most of the artists are Scandinavian. We've had some from other countries performing at Rising and Countdown. Rising is the oldest one of the two, and the vibe and the type of artists playing Rising stage are more bands in a traditional sense, drums, bass, guitar, whereas Countdown is more urban electronic. Yeah, and what we decided to do with all the technicians that we hire is actually at the Rising stage, some of the most experienced technicians that we hired, we put them on the Rising stage. So that's also an educational platform for technicians coming in with upcoming bands. Very often, an upcoming band will hire the best friend or the sound guy they met at the venue they played last week. So we also support and trying to teach and train the band's technicians and give a good start off. And every state is supported by Bright. They do the service logistics. We have technicians present to do front of house monitors or support the band's technicians, and Maya Sound is present with their tech supports. So, and this is the same even with Rising State. So upcoming bands are in really good hands and being well supported in all positions.
Yeah, and I would like to hand over right now to my dear friend and colleague Rahul, who actually did the Rising Stage for 2 years. The tuning and the calibration of the systems and the support of the front of house people and the young and the very experienced engineers. And I'm really glad that Rahul can join us today, and I'm keen to hear about your experiences, Rahul.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Lars, for introducing the stage. Roskilde is definitely an event I look forward to every year. It's great working with the Roskilde team. They're very progressive and very, like Lars said, they're proactively looking at creating the best possible experience for the festival goers. So I did have the privilege of working at the Rising Stage, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So what makes the Rising Stage exciting? It's one of the first stages to go online, as Lars mentioned. So there's a lot of excitement around it. It's one of the first stages to get built up, to get rigged up. So there's a lot of anticipation. And this also sets expectations for everyone for the week that is ahead. The voicing and the festival sound starts at these stages. This is where things start building up. Lars, I think, will talk about the festival sound in a little bit more detail later. But as you will see, I think I'm not able to change slides. Michael, can you help, please? Next slide.
No, it appears to be working. So there's some lag.
I will wait next time. So yeah, we need to go back one slide. Yeah, there is a lag. Can we go back to that wide shot, please, Michael? The one before this. Yes, thank you. Sorry about that. So as you can see, in terms of weather, it's a really great time to be outdoors in Denmark. And this stage is set up in a wide open field, which can get quite windy. And as you all know, it can get a little challenging sometimes when you have to do large PA reinforcement in windy conditions. As you see, there are also clouds. It does rain sometimes, and the PA is pretty exposed to the elements. These loudspeakers are weather protected, so we're covered on that ground, and the festival goes on. There is no defined audience boundary for this stage. It's actually like it's set up in the campground, so it's open. There's no defined audience area, so there's audience all over the place. We will look at that as well. The content's quite dynamic, as Lars mentioned. We have all kinds of genres of music playing, but the audience size is also quite dynamic at this stage, since it's an open ground without a definite boundary. It's usually a very relaxed stage with upcoming artists, setting the mood for festival goers. However, it's not uncommon to be blown away by acts like Yalma last year, who pulled in a crowd of about 12,000 people. So this was a pretty packed stage. However, the headroom that we have on the system allows us to deliver a consistent experience despite such dynamic changes in the load that's put on them. Moving on. As you will see here, this is a picture taken from the stage, and you can see that there's no defined boundary for the audience. So it's pretty spread out audience all over the place. And this next slide shows us an overview of the system. This is a real poster that we use at FOH to familiarize guest FOH engineers with what the system is. And it's a pretty straightforward system with a flown left, right, some subs on the ground to reinforce low end, and a front fill system. We will break this down and look at it piece by piece. This is a list of loudspeakers that we used at this stage. As you will see, it includes monitoring as well. The 500 HP and the MJFs were used on stage. We also had Ultra X40s, which we used as FOH PA. Lars and Michael and some of my colleagues will talk about that in detail in a little bit. So let's take a closer look at the system that we have in plan, that is from top. In blue, you will see the main leopards. We also have a picture in the background which is showing the left-right PA. Your keen eyes would have noticed that the leopards are not pointed straight ahead. They're actually towed out a little bit. This radial extension allows us for a little for wider coverage. And we were able to do this with the leopards. They have a wide, constant horizontal dispersion with very consistent response on and off axis. So we were able to cover the edges of the venue while not at all compromising the sound in the important section of the venue, which is down the middle, where both the left and right PA coverages meet. And being at this stage, we were not surprised at all when more than a few engineers complimented us on how seamless the transition was when they walked from side to side, or when they walked from back of the venue to the front, getting into the front fill system, which you would see here in orange. We have UPJ 1Ps doing the outfill duties, and same UPJ pointing inwards doing the infill duties, giving us nice front fill coverage. And on this next slide, you can see the low frequency elements. We had the best of both worlds. We had 900 LFCs, 3 per side flown, and we had 2 1100 LFCs ground stacked per side. We will talk about that in detail a little after this. Now, looking at the same system from a different perspective, a section view, I want to point out a couple of things here. One is we see that we've set a target coverage area of 60 meters, but as I've been mentioning, there was no definite boundary, but we aimed for 60 meters. And if you remember the pictures, the picture from earlier, it was campground, and you see tents starting, and that was roughly at about 80 meters mark. And we had audience spilled out all the way up to there, and coverage was still good. It was still an enjoyable experience sitting that far from the PA. I think that's really nice. There were also big acts that surprised us by filling in areas more than what we looked at as a primary target. So this spillover audience still had good coverage. Now, second thing I want to point out is, if you will notice, the PA is actually slightly behind the edge of the stage, which means the stage is ahead. But because of how controlled the dispersion of the leopards is, that did not cause any issues. We still had all the gain before feedback that we needed. and that was no issue at all. Moving on to the next slide, taking a closer look at the section view. We have 12 leopards per side, as we saw. Over that, we have 3 900 LFCs. These 900 LFCs perform a few functions. One is, of course, to extend the low frequencies of the array of the leopard system. And the second function is to increase the length of the overall array, getting us better control over low frequencies in the vertical. And of course, having subs in the air also helps us with throw and reach for low frequencies through the venue. And we have 1100 LFCs on the ground, which are again adding to that low frequency energy and also extending, giving us some additional low frequency extension, taking over from the 900 LFCs. We also have the UPJ system that you can see here. And the reason we wanted to point out all these systems here is you will notice a lot of different kinds of loudspeakers from different families, and that are part of one system, so they need to work together. And one of the big advantages of using a self-powered system that has a very controlled phase response with just and with product integration available to you as a tool within Compass, it's very easy to match their phase responses and make them work together in perfect harmony. And yes, the 1100 LFC and the 900 LFC are also phase matched very easily with just a few clicks in Compass. So that makes deploying the system very, very convenient.
Yeah, Ro,
next,
sorry.
Yes.
Ro, I wanted to add on that note that if people want to know why UPJ and not another loudspeaker, be sure to watch our power scaling webinar, which you will find on the YouTube channel.
Yes, please do. And,
one quick question I have, Rahul. So saying that Compass and the tools and the toolkit gives you a very quick matching of all the systems. Do you remember how long it took to calibrate the system? Incompletely, I mean, with all the matching and coverage checks and room tests, and if I remember right,
yeah, I think
limit tests and stuff like this.
I think it took a whole of 15 minutes, out of which I think 10 minutes was required to actually move the mic from position to position, running over the place. Yeah, it was super quick. Yes.
Yeah, and without compromising the quality, right?
Yes, of course, without compromising the quality. We will. I think I went ahead a couple of slides. I'm not able to go back. Could you please go back? Okay, that's fine then. So here you see a fully rigged PA. Everything looks good. So how did we get here? I'm going to talk quickly a little bit about the process. So any PA starts with a good design, and this again started off with a very well thought of design. The rigging was completely based off that design with information that is available in MapXT after you design a system. Once we're on ground, we rig the system, verify the system. We verify the angles, the positions, verify the wiring, the signal flow. Stages. It was really quick because of that well thought of design. So one of the main goals in calibration is to verify that the measurements we get in field are actually the same measurements that we got in map. So that is the first goal. The second thing is we aim to do as little as possible electronically to compensate for anything that is required in that system. So design as close as possible to perfection in MapXT, which again makes which is why MapXT is such a powerful tool. We can look at avoiding a lot of known artifacts by just making informed decisions with loudspeaker selection. Like Merlin mentioned, power scaling is important. and of course, position of these loudspeakers. And the calibration process really was just touches here and there, which is why it didn't take long for this stage. Most of the time was spent on from position to position and changing those kind of things. And after this, we move on to voicing, which is very subjective. It's based on many factors. And especially at Roskilde, I find this a very beautiful team effort. I'll hand over back to Lars, who will elaborate more on that. Yeah. Thank you.
Just before the system is handed over, we have what we at Roskilde Festival call the Circle of Trust. It's an idea that our sound consultant, who's the RF Tech Education Program, Morten Bugert, came up with. And the Circle of Trust is, the idea is that when you do your final listening test at every stage, Morten will gather all sound crew from the stage and they'll listen to the system. And it's everyone from Maya sound people, Bright support, patch guy, monitor, front of house, gather in a circle, listen to the system, and they will give their input to the circle, so that everyone is heard. It may be a small detail, but it does give the whole team a chance to adjust and for everyone to sign off that the system is ready to go. So that's basically what we do for every stage at the Handover, and it's called the Circle of Trust because they're all professionals taking part in the process and all input is valuable. System.
Lars, can I do a sentence over here?
You're welcome.
From the technical perspective, it's very awesome to have this circle of trust because you have the possibility to hear many different systems, many different sizes, many different venues in one just circle of trust. I mean, in one day. So that was for me amazing. This the last year. It's just a small note for that.
Yeah, and
I think that's
what I would like to add, Lars, is just for the people that haven't been there, and I think all the attendees of this one haven't been at the Circle of Trust. The listening and handover for each stage, of course, happens not at the same time, which means Lars is moving around, and that gives all the techs from Bright, from the RF techs, from Meyer Sound, from front of house guys, if they are already there. A couple of bands are arriving early and stuff like this to join these tests. So everybody has the experience within a couple of hours to hear from the smallest to the biggest, everything. And that is something that is so unique and so valuable also for us that I think everybody's enjoying this really, really good.
yeah, especially the effort that goes into voicing all these systems the same, regardless whether it's a small venue or whether it's, as we're about to see, a venue the size of Orange.
I think one of the key elements to a successful audience experience is that's what we're all there for, is to get all the input you can and work with all the input and have people engaging in the process and treasure all the good professionals you have around. And that's basically what we're doing with the Circle of Trust.
Awesome. So Lars, can you take us to the next stage, please?
Yeah, let's jump off to Apollo.